All right, so let me start here, Dr. Fitzpatrick. I'm not an anti-vaxxer at all. I believe in vaccines. I understand vaccines, but I am nervous about this coronavirus vaccine. I have deep concerns about it, that it happened so quickly. And if I have this wrong from what I've read, and it's kind of confusing because I'm not a scientist or a doctor, I guess the construction of this vaccine is the way it was constructed is new, the way that it was built out versus older vaccines back in the day. So I just have some concerns. And then what I've heard, Dr. Fitzpatrick, actually, no, I know people that's been through this. The first dose, not too bad. Reportedly, the second dose, and I have a friend I was texting with today, knocks you out for like 2 days. And I had the coronavirus, and I wasn't knocked out for 2 days. So I just have some concerns. So what do you say to folks like me who are not anti-vaxxers, who believe in vaccines, who have been vaccinated, and we're just nervous, we're just afraid?
Yeah, it's completely understandable. Those are good questions, first of all, and they are also very common questions. A lot of my work is actually done out in the community answering people's questions because we have a lot of programs on the internet. We have a lot of specialists talking on TV and radio, but we don't really give people a chance to ask questions directly to make sure they understand. So I appreciate you elevating these concerns. So whether or not, this vaccine is safe and whether or not it knocks you out for a couple of days, I mean, those are valid concerns. I was a participant in the research trial for Moderna. So I experienced this vaccine early on. So my first shot was in October, and I got my second shot in November. But before I tell you about my side effects, I just want to share with people these vaccine studies happen in phases. And this is a research process that's tested, tried, and true. We've used it for medications. So if anybody's listening who takes medications over the counter or prescribed by a doctor, all those medications went through this same research process. So I just want folks to be clear that we didn't change anything with respect to how you conduct research, but yes, it did go quickly. And I'll tell you why. There are multiple reasons for that, because I understand that creates a lot of skepticism and distrust as well. First of all, there's no set timeline for how long a vaccine the vaccine production process should take. And sure, it's taken years, and sure, there are infections like HIV that we don't yet have a vaccine for, but those, each germ or each virus is different. Fortunately for this coronavirus, we know a lot about how it looks, how it behaves. It's genetically very similar to coronaviruses we've seen before, whether it was the SARS or MERS in Asia. But the common cold that most of us get every year, every few years or so, are also often coronaviruses. So because we knew a lot about it, that cut off some time. The second thing that cut off time is related to how long it takes to get approval to do research. We're in a global pandemic. A lot of the administrative and bureaucratic challenges most researchers might encounter were eliminated. So that cuts off time. We also cut off time because it takes a while to enroll enough people in the study. So people have to raise their hands to volunteer to be in research studies. And sometimes that can take months or, maybe even a year or so. But here we had lots of people raising their hands saying, I want to help. So we were able to get people quickly enrolled in the studies, and that cut off time. The timeline was also shortened because these phases usually happen one after the other. Phase 1, then phase 2, and then phase 3. In this case, again, because we're in a global pandemic, phase 2 and phase 3 happened at the same time because usually phase 2 is for the company to prove their product is working well enough in enough people so that someone will buy it. In this case, the government said, we're going to pay for it. That's why the coronavirus vaccine is free. So no one should have to pay to get the vaccine because the government already paid for it. And that allowed the phases to happen at the same time. So that cut off a lot of time. But the final reason, and I know this is a long explanation, but I think people really need to understand why
No,
it
it's
happened
important.
so quickly.
Please.
The final reason is related to your question about what is this new process, this messenger, or you're talking about messenger RNA. And it does sound a little sci-fi and a little mystical or mysterious. But the truth is, the messenger RNA mechanism that's used for the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines were actually being tested for decades. They were and they're still being looked at for treatments, for common health conditions. It's been tried in vaccines in the lab for Zika, for Ebola, for anybody who has small children. There's a common respiratory condition, respiratory syncytial virus, RSV. So the NIH scientists have been trying this mechanism even in RSV. And so the process of science is about learning. So you fail, you learn why it didn't work, and then you tweak it and you keep trying over and over again. Well, we are fortunate and we are benefiting from all of that knowledge from trying this messenger RNA before. So over 30 years of science and researchers trying to figure out how to get this to work. So we are looking at a scientific advancement with messenger RNA.
So just to make sure I have this clear, so the messenger RNA, it's been tested for years and years and years, for decades, but it's never been used on the public until now. Is that accurate? Do I have that?
That is correct. And it is because they've learned from all the mistakes they made before in the lab. So in order to create a product that actually works, you have to test in the lab to figure out how to make it work. And they figured that out because they knew so much about coronavirus and they had been trying it for other vaccines and other treatments before. So there's a lot of information.
Let me ask you one question though. Let me ask you one question. Mm-hmm. So this is one thing that concerns me. So this is the first time it's being used with the public, and like you're saying, because it's been tested and it's ready. And when things are tested, they're obviously ready to go, and they go through a whole process. But why don't they use? I think there's another vaccine where it's not messenger RNA, where it's I'm not a scientist. I'm using it like kind of basic language here, but it was kind of constructed the way the older vaccines were constructed. Why can't they just use the old school way? Like, why are they using the new school? Can't we just do the old school way? Why we got to go the new school way right now? I'm old school.
I am too, and I heard that music you were playing. I was tapping my toe. I'm down with it. Because the old way takes a long time. It takes longer. And so again, this is a medical advancement. You know, what's interesting to me is we pray for cures and medical advancements for diseases all the time, but because there's so much skepticism around this pandemic, we have fragmented messaging, we didn't have great leadership across the country around this. So people are naturally distrustful, but what's happened is it's clouded our judgment, and we can't recognize this for what it is, which is a bona fide scientific advancement. And otherwise we would be cheering this on.
Right.
But I understand, because the whole thing has been so politicized, and when you hear the sound bites, oh wow, we can't have a vaccine in a year, and well, it's because it's never been done. Nelson Mandela said, a thing seems impossible until it's done.
Gotcha.
And so it's done. And so what people need to understand about the vaccine is it does not, because this is a common question. I don't want that vaccine. They're giving you coronavirus. This vaccine does not have coronavirus in it. No vaccines will actually give you the infection it's preventing. It might give you a deadened piece of it, but it won't give you the entire thing in order to infect you with it. And so that is a very common misconception.
Is this one a dead piece of it, the messenger RNA?
No, there's no coronavirus in it. It is, and this is what's a little sci-fi about the whole thing.
Okay.
because you have to understand where it's working in the body. It's working on cells. So cells are deep, deep, deep inside the body, and they're little factories that are responsible for everything our bodies do. And so messenger RNA, its whole purpose is to give instructions. It's ordering things around to say, okay, here are the instructions to do this, here's the instructions to do that. So it's giving your body and it's really cool. So I wish people could just think about how incredible this is, that our science has advanced to the point that we could actually do this. But it's giving your body instructions to create that spike protein. You've seen that on the coronavirus
Yeah.
pictures.
Spike
That
protein. Yeah.
spike protein is responsible for the damage coronavirus is causing in people's bodies. So this messenger RNA, and that's all it is. It's messenger RNA in a fat droplet. Like, that's all it is. It might have a little preservative or something, but it's really just a fat droplet with the messenger RNA stuck inside. So the messenger RNA is saying to the body, make this spike protein, and it's fooling the body into thinking it had coronavirus. And that creates the response to protect you. So, I mean, it's really fascinating.